Rain hammered against the empty street like 1,000 tiny fists, each drop cold enough to sting. Cassia Verdon held her coat around her swollen belly, shivering as icy water soaked the hem. She had walked for nearly an hour, desperate for shelter, her breath trembling every time the wind sliced through her thin clothes. She didn't look like the same woman she had been 2 months ago. Warm apartment, stable job, a future she trusted. But the night she discovered the truth about Adrian's family, everything shattered. His brother, Lucian, had threatened her to disappear, to protect everyone involved. Though Cassia didn't believe that for a second. She knew too much, and Lucian had too much to lose. Her pregnancy, which Adrian had never even gotten the chance to understand, was now tangled in a secret far more dangerous than she ever imagined. So Cassia ran. Now she stood on a deserted avenue, soaked, exhausted, and shaking so hard she couldn't tell if it was the cold or the fear. That was when the sleek black sedan slowed beside her. The passenger window slid down, warm air spilling out like a promise she didn't trust. A man leaned slightly toward the opening, his dark hair neat despite the rain, his expression startled and concerned. "Are you all right?" he asked. His voice was deep but gentle, threaded with a kind of instinctive authority. Cassia recognized him instantly. Everyone in the city did. Rowan Hale, CEO of Hale Dynamics, a man who had turned a failing tech empire into a global machine. She had read articles about him, seen interviews, heard rumors of how cold he was. But the man staring at her now didn't look cold. He looked worried. Cassia froze, her breath hitching. She didn't want attention. She didn't want questions. But the wind bit into her skin until she gasped involuntarily, her teeth chattering so violently she could barely form sound. Rowan pushed open his door and stepped into the rain without hesitation. Umbrella forgotten in the back seat. "You're freezing." He removed his coat and draped it over her shoulders in one fluid motion. "You need warmth." The coat swallowed her, heavy with heat, and she had to blink back the ache of gratitude. I'm okay," she managed, though her lips were blue. "You're not," he said firmly. "Come inside, it's warmer." Cassia hesitated. Trust had become a luxury she couldn't afford, but her body was failing her, and the baby inside her fluttered weakly, as if sensing her distress. "Just for a moment," Rowan added, sensing her fear. "I won't force you to talk." His voice was steady, offering safety without demanding anything in return. She finally nodded. He helped her into the passenger seat, adjusting the heater toward her. Her hands trembled violently as warmth seeped into her bones. She didn't realize she was crying until Rowan passed her a clean handkerchief. "What were you doing out in this storm?" He asked quietly. She swallowed hard. I had to leave." "From where?" She stared at her hands. "Somewhere I wasn't safe." Rowan didn't press further. "Do you have anyone I can take you to?" A sharp ache settled in her chest. "No." "Then you're coming with me," he said simply. Her head snapped up. I can't. I don't know you." "Then know this," Rowan replied calmly. "I don't leave people out in storms to freeze." Her vision blurred. Kindness, real kindness. It had been so long. He drove her to a nearby private clinic, where he insisted she get warm fluids and a checkup. The doctor, startled to see Rowan Hale escorting a drenched stranger, quickly complied. Cassia felt embarrassed under the bright lights, clutching Rowan's coat around her as nurses helped her sit. When the doctor asked routine questions, Cassia panicked. She didn't want her pregnancy revealed. Not when Lucian had made it clear what would happen if the truth surfaced. But she was dizzy, weak. And when Rowan excused himself to take a phone call, she finally whispered, "I'm pregnant." The doctor's expression softened instantly. "We'll check the baby then, it's okay." Cassia nodded, relief and terror warring inside her. Minutes later, Rowan returned just as the nurse set up the ultrasound machine. He froze in the doorway, surprise flickering across his features. "You're expecting," he said slowly. Cassia's throat tightened. "Please don't, I just didn't know how to—" Rowan raised a hand gently. "Cassia, it's all right. You don't owe me an explanation." She stared at him, shocked. No interrogation, no judgment, just patience. The room dimmed as the screen flickered on, and then the sound filled the space. A tiny, rapid heartbeat. Cassia gasped, covering her mouth as tears streamed down her cheeks. She had feared something was wrong. She had feared the running, the cold, the stress, everything. But her baby was strong. Rowan's chest rose and fell once, sharply, as if the sound hit him somewhere unexpected. The doctor smiled. "Healthy heartbeat, good growth, everything looks normal." Cassia sobbed softly. Relief washed over her like a wave she had no strength to resist. But as she stared at the ultrasound image, she noticed something else, something the doctor circled quietly on the screen. A mark, a genetic indicator she recognized. Her stomach twisted violently. Rowan saw her face pale. "What is it?" Cassia's voice quivered. "This marker, it's hereditary. It only appears in a very specific bloodline." Rowan frowned. "Whose?" Her hands shook uncontrollably. She didn't want to say it. She didn't want to drag him into this. But the truth crashed through her anyway. "Rowan, your brother has this marker." Shock carved across his face. "My brother?" he whispered. Cassia nodded, trembling. "Your brother. He's the reason I ran. And this baby—" her breath stuttered. "This baby carries the truth he tried to bury." The room seemed to freeze. Rowan stared at the ultrasound screen, then at her, realization dawning with frightening clarity. Everything her fear, her disappearance, her silence was connected to the man Rowan trusted most. And the child she carried was living proof of a secret Lucian had threatened her to keep hidden. Rowan's breath left him in a slow, stunned exhale. He stepped back, bracing a hand against the wall as he processed her words. Lucian, his brother, the one he defended, the one he believed, the one whose loyalty he never questioned. And Cassia's trembling form stood before him, the truth carved into her tears. "How long has he known?" Rowan asked quietly. Cassia wrapped her arms around herself. "Since the day I told him I was pregnant, he told me to disappear. He said I'd ruin everything for him, that if I stayed, he'd make sure I regretted it." A cold, sharp fury ignited behind Rowan's eyes. Lucian had crossed lines before, but this was cruelty. This was cowardice. This was danger. "Cassia," he said, stepping closer, lowering his voice. "You're safe now. He will not touch you again." She shook her head weakly. "You don't know him like I do." Rowan's jaw tightened. "Maybe not, but he doesn't know me if he thinks I'll stand aside." Her eyes shimmered. No one had ever spoken for her like that. No one had stood between her and harm. Rowan turned to the doctor. "Place her in a private room, no visitors unless I authorize, and wipe her name from the standard registry." The doctor nodded immediately. Cassia stared at Rowan as if trying to understand why a man like him would care so fiercely for someone like her. "Why are you helping me?" she whispered. Rowan softened, meeting her gaze with an honesty that startled her. Because you were standing alone in the cold, carrying fear that someone else created. Because you didn't deserve to run. And because that child, he paused, voice tightening, deserves protection, not threats. Cassia's throat quivered. You don't even know me. Not yet, Rowan said quietly, but I will. She closed her eyes, overwhelmed. Rowan gently draped his coat over her shoulders again. Rest, I'll handle Lucian. Fear flickered in her expression. Please be careful, he's ruthless. So am I, Rowan replied softly. But the difference is, I fight for the right reasons. For the first time since everything began, Cassia felt her heartbeat slow into something steadier, warmer, safety. Rowan stepped toward the door, but paused. Cassia, yes? He looked at her with a promise she felt settle deep within her chest. You won't run alone anymore. And as he walked out, Cassia realized the truth. The storm she escaped had led her straight to the one man capable of ending it